Valley Consulting. And my colleagues and I would like to thank you of O.C. Tanner's China Sourcing Task Force for allowing us to analyze your private label sourcing needs. Allow me to introduce my team. This is Brady Gashler, Alden Brereton, and Caleb Williams-Smith. And we at Deer Valley Consulting have been tasked to help O.C. Tanner profitably grow their private label brands by minimizing their sourcing spend. Working with Dave Gross, the Director of Supply Chain Procurement at O.C. Tanner, and his team, the China Sourcing Task Group, sorry. We have completed our analysis of whether or not China is the best sourcing solution for O.C. Tanner's private label brands. Founded in 1927 by Obert C. Tanner, O.C. Tanner is the world leader of employee recognition, and is branded the Appreciation Company. For 2 years, O.C. Tanner has been recognized by Fortune magazine as one of the 100 best companies to work for. 30 other 100 best companies to work for use O.C. Tanner solutions to recognize their own employees. As you know from your mission statement, appreciated employees inspire, and inspired employees cause companies to grow. Subsequently, O.C. Tanner continues to grow, and much of that growth has been in their private labels. As you well know, with your 90 years of business experience, in order to stay afloat, a company must continually reevaluate its position and strategies to optimize their profitability and growth. Beginning with mass-produced anniversary awards generally presented at annual awards banquets, O.C. Tanner recognized in the 1990s that it needed to change its core business to personalized awards produced individually and available year-round for employee recognition. O.C. Tanner successfully navigated this change, and its current challenge today is to keep its private labels profitable in the face of shrinking or increasing sourcing cost. Put another way, O.C. Tanner's current opportunity is to efficiently source the best products at the best price. The question is, how will O.C. Tanner successfully accomplish this?
Our first order of business was assessing the continuing value of sourcing from China. This continuous sourcing posed as an issue. So we did a market analysis, and with this market analysis, we saw a reoccurring theme. This reoccurring theme posed in almost all data points, and that was something so familiar to all of us. That familiarity was of a ship from 1912. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It was the Titanic, and we refer to China as the modern-day Titanic. We're all aware of the associated costs with sourcing from China. We have our purchase price, we have our transportation costs, we have our duties and fees, we have our expediting and our insurance. But really, what's under the surface is what matters. It's those hidden and unknown costs that are driving this manufacturing behemoth to sink. Imports and duties and tariffs all arise from political instability. The US and China are in a little bit of a debuttal between politics right now, which could impose a 45% tariff on all goods. Although China has a booming economy, this has led to an 18% increase in labor costs, or 18% increase in wages of employees. With that 18% increase, those labor costs are nearly doubling every 4 years. At that rate, their labor costs will equal or be greater than the United States in an 8-year time. That's something we can't afford at OC Tanner. One of the bigger things that came up within the discussion of OC Tanner's group and the notes that we were given from your Chinese task force was that there's an issue that Cloud addressed. Cloud addressed the issue of corporate liability. OC Tanner boasts $92,000 savings from their 6 SKUs that were ran, but that $92,000 savings could be lost in one litigation or one class action lawsuit. Gone. And maybe even tenfold in costs. There's no reliability on these Chinese manufacturers to mitigate that cost. So it's not a viable option. One of the biggest ones, and I'm sure at OC Tanner this is huge, you have a beautiful R&D department, and they spend long and hard hours researching and developing new products like your private label brands to just source from China to give that intellectual property away. They have little laws and regulation on the sharing and integration of intellectual property among businesses. So with that little law and restriction, we've seen this before in a company called Echo. Echo sourced from China all their manufacturing, they create lights. That light was remanufactured and reproduced for 1/4 of the cost and resold at market a month later. So if you're willing to throw away all that R&D within a month from sourcing from China, that doesn't seem like a viable option. And lastly, there's a currency risk. With that growing economy, the currency is inflating. The Southeast Asia currency is on the rise, and that creates for less buying power from a U.S. entity. Beyond just the hidden costs, we're seeing market trends. GDP for China from 1998 to 2007 increased at nearly a steady rate of 9%. At 2007, we can see a big drop. And yes, that came with the economy, the crash of the economy, the world economy. But as it continued, it's still leveling off. As well as we can see a receding slump of exports. If that doesn't raise a red flag, I don't know what does. So with this data, we decided to look further into other options for the OC Tanner team. And this is where I'll hand it off to my associate, Mr. Brereton, to continue forward.
Thank you, Mr. Gassler. So as Mr. Gassler just so eloquently stated, China was no longer a viable option. So at this point, knowing that, having market information that this was no longer a good plan for OC Tanner moving forward, we had to analyze who we were going to source from next, because obviously we still need to fill those product gaps that we have and to find where we're going to source new material from. When we began to look at other sourcing options, we had a few indications of what economies may be good to look at. And so from there, we took those and we evaluated what things we felt like OC Tanner values the most in its supply chain, what it values the most in its suppliers. From there, we made a weighted scorecard based on factors that we all agreed were what you value the most, and we began to analyze. Looking at the cost competitiveness index for manufacturing for China, India, and Mexico, using the United States as the index base, we can see that all of their manufacturing costs are below, their labor costs are below the United States, with China being the highest below the United States, followed by Mexico and then India. Obviously, wanting to have the lowest cost, we started to look at India as the most viable option. It quickly became clear that they didn't have the infrastructure to support what we were looking to do. With OC Tanner's 99.3% on-time delivery, it just wasn't effective if we didn't have a secure infrastructure set in place to be able to transport those products from India to Salt Lake City. From there, we began to look at China, which the only positive we could really see in cost was that we were currently in the market or that you were currently in the market. From there, we began to look at the negatives, which seemed to mount irrefutable evidence that it just wasn't the best option, as we've stated. The potential for that 45% tariff implemented by President Trump, and even if it's not 45%, I'm sure we will see an increase from the current 3% average of tariffs on China imports into the US that will still increase those costs. From there, we looked at the logistics, which still has to come across the Pacific. And that was an issue once again because we weren't able to effectively deliver those products on time. And finally was language and cultural barriers. Because of the cultural barriers and needing a translator or needing somebody in the potential of sending somebody from OC Tanner's headquarters here in Salt Lake to go deal with manufacturing issues over in China, it just creates such an exponential growth in the amount of time, the amount of energy, and the cost that were associated with fixing those problems that it just didn't make sense. From there, we looked at Mexico, which seemed to fall right in the middle, still having cost savings actually below China as far as labor costs were concerned, but having the infrastructure to support where India did not. It seemed like the best option. As we began to look at it, they have the lower labor costs, they have the technology, and as we further delved into China's new cybersecurity law that just became effective in 2017, that enables companies and actually requires them to provide more intellectual property and information about their operation when they move into China. Mexico actually has the most stringent laws on intellectual property in the world, even higher than the United States. So we know that any of that technological expertise that you have built up over the years is going to be protected there. Some negatives in Mexico obviously are the corruption rates are higher, the crime rates are higher in certain areas. But looking at where we currently sell, this is what percent of our sales come from each region. 99% of OC Tanner's sales come from the United States, United Kingdom, and India. As you can see, the United States is still far and large the biggest market and the most profitable cash cow for OC Tanner. So with sourcing in Mexico, we'd be able to reduce lead times, reduce costs, and still have better logistics coming into Utah. Once again, in Mexico, one of the reasons that China currently isn't being able to be expanded at the rate that we would like is because they don't actually use OC Tanner's services. As we learned from your China sourcing task force, is that China has a different sort of appreciation culture. They're not about appreciation as much as other countries. When we began to look at the Hofstede studies of different countries and their different factors, we saw that Mexico actually has the highest indulgence rate of any country in the world. That means that they like their free time, they like to be able to choose what they want when they shop. They really value choice, which is one of the things that OC Tanner's rewards program and recognition programs really focuses on. So we felt like that would actually be a great opportunity to also grow that market. When we were looking at the zone of opportunity, what we wanted to do was to find the markets that have the best margin on cost, as well as the best scorecard results. And from there, we knew that those sourcing countries and those products would be the ones that would allow us to optimally increase the profitability of OC Tanner's private label products. So here you have our scorecard. As you can see, we have our different measures over there, as well as the weights in each category. If we look across each one of our 4 considerations, we see that China's peppered with red and yellow. It was actually the lowest scoring country that we evaluated, which is why we decided to go with those other options. As we looked at India, they did have really great costs, but beyond those cost savings, everything else was not up to par with where OC Tanner expects from their suppliers. Moving across to Mexico and the United States, Mexico obviously is very good to average across the board, and the United States is excellent, obviously, but they have such high exorbitant costs that it just didn't make sense financially to move those product manufacturing and sourcings back to the United States. So as you can see down here, our total scores left Mexico at 76.98, pretty close to 77. The United States around 71, China below 50, and India right above 50. This is where we decided that rather than sinking on the behemoth that China's current manufacturing floor economy is, we need to get you on the life raft of moving to Mexico. When we're looking at the currency in Mexico, we see that over the past few years, it's gone from almost 80 cents on the dollar down to about half the worth of a US dollar, or about 5 cents, excuse me, half of the, and so as we see that we have more buying power coming from the United States going into Mexico, while also, as we said, those strict intellectual property laws are going to protect that technology that we've built up. Mexico also has 44 free trade agreements, which is more than any other country, and currently they are one of the lowest tariffed countries moving imports into the United States, with their total average import tariff being 0.1%, so 30 times less than what China is. And as we looked at other options, including Bangladesh, India, Thailand, we saw that their tariff rates were anywhere from about 64 to 75 times higher than what Mexico's were. At this point, I'll pass it along to my associate, Mr. Smith, to discuss how we're going to implement this solution.
So naturally, we can't just jump up and go to Mexico right away. There has to be a slow process not to lose sales. So we implemented a 2-year plan to slowly integrate to Mexico. So when we look at the first quarter, we can see that we're trying to implement, find our key manufacturers in Mexico, establish that before we start jumping ship. And once we establish that, we want to start pulling SKUs slowly from China. But we also wanted to test and make sure this is actually a longevity move. So we have created a stop line system. As you can see that there's a red, yellow, and green. So when we're reviewing China's economy, we are looking at if it's going to increase the 18% cost rate it is currently. If it is currently doing that, the red, we'll continue removing 3 SKUs a quarter until we're completely out of China, or China. If it's yellow and it's stalled and it's still below cost rates in Mexico, we will sit for a full fiscal year to evaluate if that's a smart move to go back into it. If we see so, we will return those SKUs to China and continue business otherwise. But as we forecasted, that's an unlikely situation, and we can probably continue Mexico, and once that happens, create new SKUs in Mexico. So this is kind of a good graph to show you a visual of where we probably do recommend going. This is Ramos, Mexico. It's a great location for industrial park. A lot of manufacturers have been there. And since the 1990s crash in Mexico's economy, land and warehouse there is very affordable. And many manufacturers are moving there for that reason. We would definitely start looking there, mainly because there's a couple of ports next to it in Texas, as well as down in northern Mexico, that could be very powerful when it comes to this supplier abilities. Transit time to Utah, Salt Lake, is 1,500 miles. So if you transit, if you drove all the way for 24 hours, you get there. Obviously, that's not too realistic, so 3 to 5 days push around in transit. As well as flight time is 8 hours, so if we had to get something in stock immediately, it's going out right away. We do that. As well as a drop ship option. We think since 80% of our market is in the United States, we have the ability to really control that, and delivery is huge when it comes to those rewards. So we really want to make sure we are on that when it comes to it. While China has been a great source since 2002 for sourcing, due to an increasing known and unknown costs, as well as changing economic climate, has forced OC Tanner to reevaluate its options. Although China has been a great solution, we have viewed Mexico as the new home, and slowly integrate from there to Mexico. And this will create greater margins for OC Tanner's private label, as well as the overall profit of the company. Thank you.
At this point, I will open up for any questions that you guys have for us.
Wow.
Casey?
Was there any evaluation on which SKUs you think would be most profitable to start moving first out of China, or the social team?
As we evaluated the 24 current SKUs that were in China, we saw that their margins over domestic costs were actually like 30 to 72%. We decided that, obviously, initially, as you saw through the implementation plan, every time that China's growth or GDP goes down in the quarter, as we track that in the market trend analysis, we're going to remove those 3 SKUs. So we would start at the least profitable ones with the lowest margins, obviously move those over first. At the same time, obviously, we have to think about the logistics of sourcing those new materials and those new manufacturing units in Mexico. Obviously, we would need to negotiate contracts and figure out the logistics and costs and things like that that are over there. So if we find really viable options and like really good options initially, we could move SKUs before their actual time from China over to Mexico.
We understand that's not the world's easiest process. It's going to be picking down there. So I think that's one thing we do is we sample those 3 SKUs and kind of go over and we see that's a good system. We kind of build off that and say, hey, this is good. You know, obviously there's machines that go with that. How to get them over there and the skilled labor that could be involved with that product. So that would be associated with that. And once we get really good at that, we can really plan out better as each quarter goes.
But we have evaluated all of those SKUs and ranked them based on the percentage of savings that we see sourcing from China versus domestic.
And they all need to go over.
Eventually, yes. Given China's current economic condition, if it doesn't change or if it continues the way it looks like it's going to continue, yes, we need to move all these SKUs.
And that's kind of why the 2-year plan with the stop line was, you know, we're not going to just say, nah, we're going, here's 2 years, we're doing it out. We're going to.
That was well thought out. I'm just wondering if we had any consideration for the actual technologies that we're trying to move over. Does Mexico have those technologies
So
under their belt?
We were, go ahead.
So, staying from that, Foxconn is the largest investor in China's economy. They are also the largest deliverer of PCs within the Asian Pacific. They are actually moving nearly all of their production to Mexico, and they have 5,500 employees there currently and have plans to expand and grow. Beyond Foxconn, you've got other companies they have reports that are seeking moving, depending on taxes and political standpoints, or political movements. So they had big names like GE was one of them, GM was one of them, and they're all backing huge manufacturing down there. So between Foxconn and having technology there, and I think it would be a very viable option to move new technologies down there as well.
As well as looking at what our products are. The whole reason that OC Tanner initially moved to China, as I'm sure you all know, was for the Bravo boxes, the lucite frames. As we began to look at that, Piedmont Chemical creates lucite frames as well as the acrylics that they're making, and then actually the company Lucite International has headquarters in Mexico, so they could produce that. They also do custom cutting and things like that for whatever we, you know.
Textiles?
Mhm.
Still also?
And moving into, I know that one of OC Tanner's biggest markets is technology. One of the things they see people selecting the most. The United States has like the highest levels in beryllium as far as natural resources go. They control 85% of the world's resources in beryllium, which is used in battery packs for things like cell phones, rechargeable battery packs for phones, headphones, things like that. So a lot of that goes into electronics that use some sort of battery.
So you've highlighted a lot of the risks that are there, the potential risks for China. What are the potential risks for Mexico? Have you considered those?
Yeah, we absolutely have. When we were looking at those tariffs, 45% on China obviously is huge. Chances are, as I said, we probably won't see a 45% tariff, but we probably will see an increase. In the potential for NAFTA to be repealed, which it looks like has a pretty good indication that that could happen, we would see those tariff costs go up, but we don't see them going up as much as China because President Trump has labeled China a currency manipulator. So he's basically using the tariffs as sanctions against them, and he's not applying the same logic in Mexico.
What about some of the political unrest in Mexico as far as fuel goes and the issues they've been having with strikes and blockades and things
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
going on and potential
So
for
that-
rising fuel costs.
That location is pretty modern in the sense of that obviously it's hard to predict when, the possible cartel or town on that road going to it. That manufacturing kind of hub is pretty well modern, very secure. You got GM who's very dedicated to keep that, pumping. So it's very safe in that sense. There's also an index, a crushing index for Mexico. It's about 3.8%, which kind of states pretty low. So just the risk of that happening is not likely where we're at. If we went more southeast, we'd kind of see more of that problem. But we don't think that's going to be a huge chance of that happening. I mean, anything can happen, that, but we don't think,
As a factor that was big enough to.
we think it outweighs that risk on
Definitely.
savings we can have.
Definitely saw, that as a potential risk, but we felt like with the risks that were involved in China, it just far outweighed those. So,
So I'm still struggling, help me understand. You're basically saying that right now, or is it in the future, the cost of manufacturing in China is going to be as high as Mexico, or it is now?
it is currently the labor costs of Mexico. According to the data that we found, the labor costs in China are greater than Mexico.
That came from the Boston Consulting Group. They did a study in 2014, and then, it's even older, and if the same recurring pattern is happening in China with that 18% increase in labor costs, I would assume that it would be even greater, because that study was done 4 years ago.
So at this point, it would have already doubled.
And newer reports, we found some reports from 2015 and 2016 that all said that the trends were constant and current.
But we catch up to the United States in 8 years.
If they continue at that 8% labor
We
cost
assume we're
increase,
going to grow too, right?
that's where you see a lot of companies are bringing back domestic or onshoring. And when have we been in the import? It was nearshoring?
Nearshoring,
Nearshoring.
bringing it to Mexico.
Bringing it to Mexico, because right now domestically it's not a viable option because the margin's not there. You're looking at a margin of, $1 and then a loss of $2 on another one, or another product, or as far as our main
Domestic sourcing.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of consideration for the negative effects or the negative history of China. What kind of considerations did you guys make in regards to how China is going to respond to an increased tariff or these increased labor costs? They're not going to let their country go under.
No, absolutely.
So what kind of considerations were made for that?
When we looked at the retaliation, obviously they're the leading manufacturer in the world's technology, basically tablets, the majority produced there, cell phones, the great majority produced there. When we look at that, the Chinese president did respond to President Trump saying that it would basically create a tariff war where they just continue to ratchet up. We think that could be a potential issue, but regardless, if we can source different items outside of China at this point and avoid those tariff costs completely, we felt like it made more sense than staying in China, waiting for those tariff wars to begin before we started looking at other options. Just didn't make sense to be behind the curve. And so even though out of 9 out of the 14 most precious metals, China has the majority as far as natural resources are concerned, that doesn't change the fact that if that tariff is imposed, we're still going to have to pay those prices moving into Salt Lake.
Yeah, it's very compelling.
You can go back to that scorecard you want to show how that breaks down on every aspect of, let's do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on some of those numbers.
That's a good slide.
It is.
And we can explain a little more too. I know it's not it's colorful.
Right.
It really drives the point home.
Well, like the quality control, warranty costs. You're saying that Mexico's right up there with the U.S. Probably statistically, no different. What kind of evidence is there for that that you're seeing?
That Boston Consulting Group actually did a 25-page report on, it was where we pulled that cost-effective index from, the earlier index that all decided it was this one right here. Yeah. This Boston Consulting Group did a 25-page report on new manufacturing. They qualified them as lacking, stagnant, and then growth. Mexico was in that growth, and one of the biggest things they saw, and this, we were going to discuss this, but I think this is something that needs to be said. They outrank us by their standards, Boston Consulting Group, outrank us in productivity. US, we think that we're the highest in productivity, but from 2004 to 2014, they grew, and I believe that's on one of our slides, they grew 50% in productivity, which end result in more quality. Mexico did in an overall workforce, and this was a survey done by Boston Consulting Group. And with that 50% more productivity, as well as they saw quality ramifications improve. I think it was like, I'm not going to remember. Interesting.
Yeah, when we looked at it,
Just answer the last question
Okay.
and then we're.
when we looked at it, Boston Consulting Group found that heavily industrialized countries that in the past were the best as far as cost cutting, such as China, Russia, and Bangladesh, when they looked at them, they were actually, the majority of people were moving away from them because their costs were starting to get so high. Consumers in China wanted to be paid more because they wanted that more consumerism lifestyle, but they were actually moving to the two markets, which we've discussed, were the United States and Mexico, were their two shooting stars. The United States just doesn't have the cost there right now. If we get better tax breaks, currently there's a 10% reshoring fee as far as foreign cash that is in the pipeline, according to President Trump. That could be another viable option if we looked at it in the future, but as of right now, Mexico is the best option.
Thank you.
Yay.